Imagine a single desk in a real estate office.
Okay.
Across that desk, in the span of just a few weeks, paperwork is signed for a sprawling, custom-built rural estate that sells for $880,000.
Wow, that's a massive deal.
All right. And then right next to it, on that exact same desk, is the contract for a three-bedroom house that goes for $80,000.
Wait, really? 80,000?
Yeah, 80 grand. A 10-to-1 wealth gap, handled by the exact same agent in the exact same regional market in the exact same month.
See, that kind of data totally shatters the neat, 30,000-foot macroeconomic charts we usually rely on.
Because it's just too broad, right?
Exactly. The big charts try to tell us how a whole region is performing, but a gap like that forces you to look at the granular reality of what is actually happening on the ground.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. I'm your host, and today we are pointing a digital microscope at one specific regional real estate agency.
And I'm thrilled to be here to break it down with you.
Awesome. So we are looking at the July 2026 digital footprint of Randolph Realty Group. They operate out of St. Joseph, Missouri. And the goal here is to decode what their business philosophy, their current property listings, and their recently closed sales data tell you about the underlying economic realities of Middle America right now.
And we are sourcing this directly from the agency's own ecosystem.
Right, straight from the source.
Yeah, we're analyzing their state admission, their agent roster, their live multiple listing service data, and, the hard numbers from their recently closed deals.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because treating a local realtor's website like a community's financial diary is incredibly revealing.
It really strips away the PR of a town.
It totally does. It shows you what people actually aspire to, what they're willing to settle for, and honestly, what they can legitimately finance.
The hard financial truths.
Exactly. So as we go through this, I want you, the listener, to mentally map this onto your own neighborhood. If we pulled the raw, unfiltered property data for your town today, what story would those numbers tell?
Let's start by looking at the architecture of the business itself.
Good idea.
Because how a brokerage structures its services tells you a lot about the market it operates in.
Right. So Randolph Realty Group is headquartered at 1934 Frederick Avenue in St. Joseph.
Standard Midwest brick and mortar.
Yeah, they operate on standard Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 hours. You can call them at 816-364-HOME. But the critical piece of data is really their mission statement.
What's fascinating here is how they position themselves.
As a trusted partner.
Yes, providing full spectrum support for everything from, simple transactions to highly complex needs, and they explicitly list their domains. They do residential, commercial buildings, and raw land.
They also hammer home this idea of making the entire process seamless and stress-free.
Yeah.
But I want to challenge this full spectrum approach for a second.
Oh, how so?
Well, if I'm an investor looking to buy, like, a commercial strip mall,
Right.
or a farmer looking to buy 300 acres of agricultural land, do I really want to work at the same agency that just sold a two-bedroom suburban bungalow?
You're worried about them spreading themselves too thin.
Yeah, exactly. Like, doesn't claiming to do absolutely everything dilute your actual expertise?
Well, what's fascinating here is the physical necessity of that broadness.
Necessity.
Yeah, I think you are thinking about this through the lens of a massive coastal hub.
Okay, fair point.
If you operate in Manhattan or Miami, hyper-specialization is how you survive.
Right, because there's just so much volume.
Exactly. You have agents who solely deal in penthouse condos in a specific 3-block radius because the transaction volume in that tiny niche is high enough to sustain a business.
But St. Joseph is different.
Very different. It's a regional hub surrounded by rural communities. The transaction volume physics simply do not allow for that kind of hyper-niche specialization.
Because there just aren't enough commercial strip malls changing hands every month to keep the lights on if that's literally all you do.
Precisely. In a regional Midwest market, a successful brokerage functions less like a boutique consultancy and more like, localized economic infrastructure.
So you have to be a real estate Swiss Army knife.
That's a perfect analogy. You have to be versatile enough to analyze soil yields and water rights for a land sale on a Tuesday.
And then pivot to navigating suburban school district zoning boundaries on a Wednesday.
Exactly. It is not about diluting expertise. It's about scaling local knowledge across multiple asset classes to maintain a viable volume of closed deals.
So they aren't just selling houses. They're essentially operating the regional grid for land transfer.
Right.
And to operate a grid that massive, you need serious boots on the ground. Which brings us to their agent roster in their geographic footprint.
The sources list a pretty sizable team.
Yeah, we have Kenton Randolph, Ashley Franken, Vicki Wheeler, Isaac Unruh, Jonathan McLean, Taylor Krause,
John Norton, Skylar Robeson,
and Malia Randolph, and Angela Linville.
It takes a roster that deep to cover the sheer square mileage they are operating in.
And the mileage is staggering, honestly. Their featured service areas aren't just neighborhoods within St. Joseph.
No, they're capturing a massive chunk of Northwest Missouri.
Right. We are talking about Savannah, Cameron, Mound City, Trenton, Maysville, Maryville, Chillicothe, and Platte City. Geographically, that is a massive net to cast.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of geographic spread reveals the consolidation strategy of modern regional brokerages.
How do you mean?
Well, decades ago, every one of those small towns might have had its own independent, standalone real estate office.
Oh, sure. The classic local agent on Main Street.
Exactly. But today, the regulatory overhead, the digital marketing costs, and just the sheer technology stack required to run a brokerage are immense.
So a hub like Randolph Realty Group consolidates the rural and suburban markets to handle those costs.
Right.
Which means those 10 agents aren't just driving a lot of miles. They actually have to understand the microeconomies of 8 different municipalities.
That's the real challenge.
Because the zoning laws in Maryville are going to be completely different from the property tax structures in Platte City.
And that requires an incredibly deep bench of localized trust.
Speaking of trust, I couldn't help but notice the recurring last name on that roster.
You mean Randolph?
Yeah. You have Kenton Randolph and Malia Randolph. It strongly suggests a family-rooted business.
It definitely does.
And in an era where massive, faceless tech companies are trying to algorithmically disrupt real estate, I just wonder about the psychological leverage of having a literal family name on the door.
It feels like a distinct business moat, doesn't it?
Yeah. You aren't just buying a brand, you're buying the accountability of knowing you might literally run into the person who sold you your house at the local grocery store.
That is the anchor of their trusted partner philosophy. It is highly intentional positioning.
Local over national.
Exactly. National conglomerates can outspend them on digital ads, sure, but regional brokerages leverage physical proximity and generational reputation.
Because when a transaction gets complicated.
And real estate always gets complicated.
True. Buyers and sellers in Middle America tend to default to the entity with the deepest local roots.
Let's pivot from the people to the actual inventory. Let's look at what is sitting on the market right now in July 2026.
Yeah, the active listings are basically a live structural map of the local economy.
The active data gives us the drip line of what the market considers normal right now.
And looking at it, we clearly see a mid-tier establishing itself in the low to mid-200s.
Right, like that property on University Avenue.
Yeah, 53300 VP1 University Avenue. It's listed for $229,000. It is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home sitting at just under 1,600 square feet.
Then there's 2600 Cardinal Lane.
Right, that one's for $220,000, which is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
And 508 Benton Drive at $229,900.
That 220 to 230 range really seems to be the firm anchor point for a standard middle-class single-family home in this market.
It is the operational baseline. But the active listings also reveal some severe anomalies that challenge our assumptions about how real estate is actually valued.
Okay, let's look at the higher-end anomalies then. We've got 1902 Park Ridge Drive on the market for $374,900.
Which makes sense on paper.
Yeah, it was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and it jumps up to over 3,700 square feet. You're clearly paying for a massive footprint.
But then we hit that coming soon listing.
Oh man, yeah. 2705 Lovers Lane. It is listed for $575,000. But here's the thing. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and it's only 1,578 square feet.
So it has the exact same bedroom count and nearly the exact same square footage as the home on University Avenue that costs less than half as much.
It's wild. And it gets even more extreme when you look at a property on Sacramento Street.
Oh, right.
It's listed for just $250,000, but it boasts 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms.
This raises an important question about the underlying mechanics of real estate pricing.
Yeah, it does.
If a savvy listener is looking at this data, they have to ask why a massive 5-bedroom home on Sacramento Street is priced at $250,000. while a significantly smaller three-bedroom home on Lover's Lane commands an astronomical premium of $575,000.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I like to think of it like cars.
Cars.
Yeah, buying real estate here is like choosing between a utilitarian minivan and a luxury sports car. The Sacramento Street property is the minivan. It's got lots of room, it's practical, it's affordable.
Okay, I see where you're going.
And Lover's Lane is the sports car. It's smaller, but you pay a massive premium for the name and the address. We often think we are buying a house, but we're actually buying land that happens to have a depreciating structure sitting on top of it.
That's exactly it.
I mean, I don't want to just point out that location matters. We all know that. But a $300,000 delta for the exact same square footage is something else entirely. It tells me that Lover's Lane isn't just a nice street. It possesses an invisible economic moat.
That is the correct way to frame it. The structure itself, the drywall, the roof, the plumbing, it is constantly depreciating.
Right. It requires capital to maintain.
Exactly. The land, and specifically the zoning and historical prestige attached to that land, is the asset that actually appreciates.
Because Lover's Lane is historic in St. Joseph.
Very iconic. But more importantly, neighborhoods like that often have strict zoning laws, historical preservation rules, and minimum lot sizes.
Which artificially restrict any new supply from being built.
Bingo.
So you aren't paying a premium for better wood or nicer countertops. You are paying $500,000 to access a geographically locked scarcity.
Right.
You are buying your way behind an invisible regulatory and historical wall that protects your property value from future density.
Exactly. The dynamic at play.
Mm.
And Randolph Realty Group isn't just displaying their own listings to capitalize on these dynamics.
No, they aren't.
The sources show they're heavily utilizing the Heartland MLS, the multiple listing service.
They are syndicating active listings from their direct competitors. Right?
Yeah, like Coldwell Banker, Remax, Keller Williams, straight onto the Randolph website.
Let's explain the mechanics of that because it is a brilliant technological strategy.
It really is.
They are using what's called an IDX feed, which basically allows a local broker's website to pull the raw, live data from the region's central real estate database.
So if I'm a buyer,
You don't need to visit 5 different agency websites to see what's for sale in St. Joseph. You just go to Randolph's site.
why do you think that matters so much from a business perspective?
Because whoever owns the interface owns the customer.
Exactly.
Even if they are displaying a Remax listing, the buyer is searching on the Randolph portal. They are submitting their contact info through the Randolph portal.
It is a digital land grab.
Absolutely. They are positioning themselves as the definitive search engine for Northwest Missouri real estate.
It turns their website from a simple digital brochure into a vital public utility.
But, active listings, even the ones pulled from the MLS, they only tell us about ambition.
Right.
The asking price is just what a seller desperately hopes their home is worth. If we want to know what the economy is actually bearing, we have to look at the closed deals.
And we have the data for Randolph's closed sales from May through July of 2026.
The closed data is where the market strips away the optimism and forces buyers and sellers to agree on a concrete monetary value.
And the spectrum of those agreed upon values is staggering.
Tell me about it. On the high end, we have a property at 8555 NW Old US 169 Highway out in Gower.
The estate.
Yeah, it sold in July for $880,000. It is a 5-bedroom, 4-bath rural estate sprawling over 5,600 square feet.
Huge property.
And then you have 4908 Any County Line Road selling for $449,000. These are massive high capital transactions.
They represent the absolute aspirational peak of this specific region.
For-
You're looking at large acreage, custom builds, properties that require significant financial leverage or, high net worth buyers.
But then we look at the other end of the ledger.
This is the part that gets me.
205 E Kansas Avenue sold in June for just $80,000. It is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house.
Wow.
And 111111 and 18th Street sold in May for $85,000, also a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. And the common denominator across all of these.
Agent Vicki Wheeler.
Yes.
She is listed as the agent on the $880,000 estate in Gower, and she is the agent on the $80,000 house on Kansas Avenue.
So what does this all mean? We are looking at an $800,000 transaction gap running through a single professional's desk in a matter of weeks.
It demonstrates a highly polarized local economy.
Completely. When I see an $80,000 home sale in the year 2026, my initial reaction is almost disbelief. I'm used to major coastal city prices where you can't even buy a parking spot for that.
Right. Sounds like a typo to some people.
But I want to dive into the mechanics of those specific ultra-low price sales. Are these properties acting as the last remaining true American starter homes? Or are these distress assets that just get swallowed up by out-of-state institutional capital?
It is the defining tension of the current housing market. A three-bedroom house selling for $80,000 in 2026 is mathematically guaranteed to carry significant deferred maintenance.
So they're fixer-uppers.
Exactly. You are looking at a roof at the end of its lifespan, outdated electrical panels, or maybe plumbing that needs a complete overhaul.
Which means a first-time homebuyer trying to use a standard FHA loan is going to run into massive hurdles.
Because of the inspections.
Right. Those federally backed loans require the house to meet strict habitability standards before they even fund the mortgage.
Precisely. The mechanics of the loan process often lock the working class out of the cheapest homes.
That's incredibly frustrating.
It is. Which leaves the door wide open for institutional capital. When property values dip below that critical $100,000 threshold, they trigger the algorithms of private equity firms and regional landlords.
And they just swoop in.
Right. These entities buy in all cash, entirely bypassing the loan restrictions.
So they don't have to care about the FHA habitability standards.
Not at all. They don't view the house as a starter home. They view it purely as a yield-generating asset. They calculate the capitalization rate, which is basically how much rent they can extract annually versus the $80,000 they paid to acquire it.
So an agent like Vicki Wheeler isn't just showing different sizes of houses. She is actively navigating two entirely different economies.
Absolutely.
On the high end in Gower, she is likely dealing with emotional buyers, custom architectural details, and really complex jumbo mortgage underwriting.
Right.
But on Kansas Avenue, she is likely fielding aggressive, rapid-fire cash offers from investors whose only emotion is tied to their expected return on investment.
It reinforces the reality that local agents in these regional hubs have to be hyper-adaptable.
They really do.
They are bridging the gap between high net worth asset management and the intense, high-velocity world of distressed real estate. They literally have to speak both languages fluently.
It is an incredible microcosm of the 2026 Midwest economy. We started by analyzing a brokerage that promises a seamless and stress-free experience, and we followed their data down into a fiercely bifurcated reality.
It's a stark contrast.
The market in St. Joseph isn't just one thing. It is the invisible regulatory moats of Lover's Lane, the sprawling agricultural wealth in Gower, and the fiercely contested entry-level assets on Kansas Avenue, all churning through a single regional office.
It proves that the economy isn't a single line on a chart. It is a complex, localized ecosystem where extreme ends of the wealth spectrum operate side by side.
And this brings us right back to you listening. The data we unpack today belongs to St. Joseph, Missouri, but your town has its own digital diary waiting to be read.
You just have to know where to look.
Exactly. If you pull the closed sales data from your local real estate office today, what does the gap between the highest and lowest property look like?
Are your town's entry-level homes acting as a ladder for first-time buyers? Or have they become permanent, yield-generating rental assets for private equity?
It is arguably the most important metric for understanding the future trajectory of your own community.
No question about it.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We spent time marveling at the sheer scale and price tag of that $880,000 estate.
It's easy to get distracted by the big numbers.
It really is. But what if the true, sustainable health of a community isn't measured by how grand its most expensive properties are?
What if it's the bottom end of the market that matters more?
Exactly. What if the actual heartbeat of a town is measured solely by the availability and the condition of its $80,000 homes?
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Because when that affordable inventory finally vanishes completely, does the American dream die? Or does it just pack up its bags and aggressively relocate to places like St. Joseph, Missouri?
It's something everyone needs to be thinking about.
Keep an eye on your local listings. The numbers might tell you a story you weren't expecting to hear.